A record 110 million people worldwide have been displaced, with wars in Ukraine and Sudan forcing millions to flee their homes in search of safety. This is according to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. Now, marking World Refugee Day, we're joined by Professor Stephanie Nawyn. Welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So, Stephanie, around 19 million people were forced to flee their homes just last year. That's the biggest annual jump on record. What pushed up the already devastating figures even higher?
There's some continuing conflicts like the war in Ukraine and the war in Syria that has continued to push people out of their country. Also, Afghanistan has destabilized. 20 years ago, people were returning to Afghanistan. Now they are having to flee again. In addition, there's displacements happening in Africa, East Africa and Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and areas around there that have seen an uptick in violence. Sudan, things have destabilized in Sudan, and so there's lots of new displacements that have happened, in addition to displacement happening in Venezuela. Most Venezuelans aren't given refugee status, at least not yet, but they are actually the largest population that's displaced outside of their home country.
Right, but the thing is, it's not just man-made conflicts that are forcing innocent people to flee and search for new homes. Natural disasters, because of climate change, are also making people refugees. What parts of the world are affected? Let's talk about that.
Certainly. So I think it's important to first note that people who are fleeing environmental disasters are not legally considered refugees. So refugee protection is only available for people who are being targeted for persecution for particular categories: their religion, their political opinion, their nationality. And so we have large numbers of people being displaced by environmental disasters, many related to climate change, but those people are not necessarily given the same legal protections that refugees are. But one of the problems we have right now is that a lot of the worst environmental disasters, like flooding, like drought that's causing famine, those are happening in places that already see conflict that's displacing people. And sometimes it's happening in the places where refugees have fled to. So they've left their country because of violence, they go to a new country, and then they're faced with drought in that new country. And so the relationship between climate change and environmental catastrophes and refugees and displacement is really complicated. I think the important thing to note is that this is the same people that are being hurt by war and by persecution are also the most impacted by climate change disasters.
Right, Stephanie, thank you so much for clarifying the categories that the different refugees in different situations fall into. Now, we are also seeing some reluctance from countries around the world, right? Poland, for example, is refusing to take anyone from Muslim countries in the Middle East and also North Africa. How should this issue be taken care of then?
This is a worldwide problem. It's Eastern Europe has gotten a lot of attention recently with not wanting to accept Syrians. This was happening in Poland. This was happening in Hungary. But lots of countries, including the United States, has been very reluctant to take in new refugees. And so, you know, this is it's an easy problem to solve in the sense that we know what refugees need. They need protection. They need rights of movement. It's just that these solutions are very politically unpopular. You know, leaders know what would solve the problem, but they don't want to do it because they feel like it's going to be very unpopular with their voting base, with their own supporters. And so it's really important for people who care about this issue to let their elected officials know that they are not against refugees, that they understand that refugees needing to be somewhere safe, to legally have the right to be in a place where they're not going to be subjected to violence, they're not going to be subjected to environmental disasters, is a human right. Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes difficult to bring new people into your country, but it's important in these times when so many people around the world cannot live safely in their home country.
Right. I guess it can be quite touchy and sensitive, especially to politicians when they're trying to gain the popularity and support from their own people.
Absolutely. And, refugees are inherently people who are different from, the native population. They are an unknown, they are strangers, but it's important to remember that they are very much like everybody else. They had regular lives, they have family, they had, some job or occupation that they use to sustain themselves. They are people who care about their community, who care about their loved ones, just like the rest of us.
Right.
And something very horrible happened in their country that upended their life. But if they're allowed to come into a new country and spend the time integrating there, they can have the same regular life that they used to have.
Right. All right, Stephanie, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.